Our biology says the worst thing, and again, it's our biology,
Mm-hmm.
the worst thing can happen to me is to be left and abandoned and isolated and without a parent. So what
Yeah.
can I do to make
Right.
you be my parent?
All right, flip your lid audience. We have a repeat offender, so to speak, with us today, and that is a pioneer in the psychological world. And that means today we have Dr. Carol George with us. She is an attachment theory expert and, glad to say, an associate friend of mine. She's been on the podcast before, and we're doing things a little bit differently this year and really bringing people back who flip my lid somehow, some way. And I can ask some questions more about them. So, Dr. Carol George, thank you for being a repeat individual and brilliant individual showing back up for us today.
My pleasure.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here. So, you and I have done this before. You have been a part of attachment theory for quite a while. We, have your book somewhere around here on the shelf, and like you're such an integral part of people understanding the attachment theory is not trendy. There's a depth to this that is just so brilliant. And so I got to do the 8 pictures with you last year and do the attachment, the AAP and different stuff. I know that you can talk about the attachment inventory and things and learned a whole lot. But in that, learned there's 2 other attachment strategies that just don't get talked about a whole lot.
Mm-hmm.
And so me walking through this process with you last year and Larissa walked through as well, me learning about dismissive attachment, failed mourning was revolutionary and still learning about it. And so just wanted to invite you back to teach us more about preoccupied with personal suffering and dismissive failed mourning and help us understand more about those if you're willing and why we're not talking about them.
Well, attachment, the way it exists in the academy, which has been moved into the clinic, which is where you are, is like a DNA strand that gets replicated year after year after year, decade after decade. So in order to answer your question, I have to go back to Mary Ainsworth,
Yes.
who was doing her work in, first of all, her work started in Africa. And I think it's really important to understand that attachment is a cross-cultural model. It's about humans and human biology and not just, even though most of the research has been with middle-class Caucasian people, it is not solely about that group. We have a lot of material now across culture, but that is not the topic of our conversation. But the point I have to make is that when Mary Ainsworth came back to the United States from Uganda, she was at Johns Hopkins, and she decided to develop something we call a strain situation. And it was a way to mimic in a short period of time with young children the separations and the stresses that a baby would go through, particularly a baby, and young babies, maybe 12 months, 24 months, that she was seeing in Africa, basically.
Yeah.
And she had a very small group of people. And because she was a trained ethologist, her main method was observation. So she went to people's homes and then brought them at the end of a year of being in people's homes for long hours with very talented undergraduate and graduate students writing down everything they saw and brought the baby in there. This was a mother study back into the laboratory and tried to figure out, because she was trained as a personality psychology, the patterns of attachment that she was seeing. She came up with 3, and then skipping ahead, the world, especially the United States world, but then again, some of the labs in Europe as well, were beginning to do more and more of these procedures. Some people were going in the homes, most people were not. And there were babies that didn't fit into the 3 patterns, which we might expect. When you only have 20 plus babies, there's going to be an outlier every once in a while.
Right.
So my advisor, Mary Main, and one of my graduate student colleagues, Dr. Judith Solomon, who's now still working in Connecticut, collected all of the videos of the babies that didn't fit And that became the beginning of what they called the disorganized attachment strategy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Mary Main, who was a student of Mary Ainsworth, was also a person who was brought to fore in the field to be the expert. And when Mary Ainsworth started to age, and then finally when Mary Ainsworth died, pretty much whatever Mary Main said was happening was what was happening in the attachment world. And the data were supporting the replication of this DNA. Okay. So there we are with babies. There we are with disorganized attachment. And then I come along and worked on my dissertation in the 80s. And I won't even tell you when I started graduate school. I was there for a long time for raising a family. And we developed together the adult attachment interview. And the goal of the adult attachment interview was to see if we could, in listening to how mothers and fathers talked about their children, we started with a sample of babies, but when the adult attachment interview was invented, so to speak, Mary Main had actually brought back babies she'd seen at 12 months, and they were now 5.
Mm.
So we were looking to see how parents talked about in a very Bowlby and Ainsworth way. And the adult attachment interview is crafted, particularly from especially Bowlby's volumes, and see if we could figure out a way they talked about their children's, their own attachment. So the idea was to see if their own attachment fit somehow with the children's attachment. And then a way of looking at patterns again, it was found that we could establish a fit between now what were 4 baby classifications: avoidant, ambivalent, resistant, secure, and disorganized, to dismissing, preoccupied, unresolved, and secure. I prefer flexibly integrated adults.
Mm-hmm.
And the AAI, the Adult Attachment Interviewer, took off internationally.
Yeah.
And people were, I have to say, the Academy is not very good at supporting creativity. You have to get tenure.
Mm. Yeah.
So people were eager to keep using the AAI. People were not even looking at the children anymore to make the matches, supposedly, because they felt they didn't need to. And there was some truth to that. So the answer to your question is that the AAI was built around those 4 groups.
Mm.
They were built on the observations of Mary Ainsworth and Mary Main.
Right.
Judith Solomon and I were interested in the parent as much as
Yeah.
we were the child.
Wow.
So we've done a lot of work on what's called the caregiving system, and we had to go back and flesh this out of Bowlby's work. And in particular, my work is not only intergenerational, but I want to see how the parent's caregiving system fits not only with their own attachment experience, the way they see it now, and fits with their child's attachment pattern now.
Yeah.
So that leads to a missing link that was discovered, that we discovered in Bowlby's 1980 volume Loss.
Mm.
And in Loss, he talks about the complexity of the way and this is the only time that defenses were really talked about in attachment theory. And you clinicians who are listening, defensive processes were exercised from academic American psychology when we had the big fight between behaviorism and psychoanalysis 100
Right.
and some years ago, right?
Yeah.
So Bowlby, who was trained as a developmental psychologist and a psychoanalyst, was talking about defenses and how the complexity of people's defenses in response to loss through death of a partner, a loved one, their spouse. He did talk a little bit about children losing their parents as well, created a conundrum of, I've lost my protective figure. I have to yearn and search for them just like we would in the strained situation. I'm yearning and searching for my attachment figure. What happens when I can't find them?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that takes us to grieving.
Mm-hmm.
So when we were developing, back to the AAI, when we were developing the AAI, it was so long ago that Bowlby was sending us written copies of the chapters by mail.
Wow. What?
We didn't even have fax.
Right.
And so the thing that Mary Main was most interested in, because she was directing the project around the adult attachment interview, even though it was part of my dissertation research, she was really interested in those individuals who started the mourning process and got stuck.
Mm.
And those people became the unresolved group. And it continues to be true today in all kinds of studies that when we are unresolved as parents, we're in so much pain that we can't see what's happening with our child's attachment needs. And those children still are disorganized. And it's
Right.
very hard and dysregulated. And it's very hard for that group without help, to really regulate and then move through the grieving process. So, without getting into too much more detail, the issue became that there was a whole two other patterns of mourning that
Mm.
became invisible because what the field was interested, in part through Mary Main's own interest, the field was interested in this unresolved group.
Mm.
Judith and I found that there were children who were dysregulated in their own attachment, who did not have unresolved mothers and fathers.
Mm. Yeah, that's profound.
It is. So
Yeah.
the rule, and there's always a violation of a rule, right?
I hope so.
We were finding enough kids, particularly, well, we've done studies from babies. Judith and I did studies on high conflict divorce and overnight visitation. The last study I did was with 4 and 5-year-old children. This particular one was with their mothers. Um, there were enough kids whose parents' thinking about their own attachment experiences did not fit the rule.
Mm.
And we started that work in the late 1980s. So it was quite a long time ago.
Yeah.
And went back to Bowlby and said, oh my gosh, we've had blinders on. We've been reading Bowlby since before 1980, and he's been talking about this. Of course, it was coming in chunks, so I'm not sure, we were making as coherent a picture as we could. There are other patterns to how we experience reactions to loss. And we were frustrated by the fact that the academic world was so focused on, and I don't want to minimize these experiences because I started in child maltreatment. They were so focused on loss through death of parents. They were so focused on child physical maltreatment.
Mm.
We couldn't even, and I'm sure we still in the courts, we don't have a good definition of emotional maltreatment, for example, that holds up.
Yeah.
But we were so focused on physical, sexual, and maltreatment and loss that Judith and I said, look, there are other ways that we can be consumed by our experiences. And I call those ways when the parent turns away when we are the most frightened or most in need.
Yeah. Yeah.
We as parents turn away from our kids all the time.
Yeah.
That's just what we do.
Right.
No, you need to manage that. No, it's not
Mm.
time for this.
Mm.
No, you know what? I know you want to go out on Friday night, but you really do have to let me know where you're going and who you're going with and who's driving, those kinds of things.
Yeah.
And if you can't tell me that, then we're not having any of that. So I'm not talking about garden variety every way turning away. I'm talking
Mhm.
about a time when our nervous system as a child, and it starts very early. And I was working with a client recently where I think the turning away may have started in utero, but it
Mm.
definitely started at the birth of her twins, because one of the births was very difficult and
Mm.
atypical.
Yeah.
And our nervous system becomes overwhelmed as parents, and not everybody does, but there's a risk of becoming so subsumed by our own distress, and we might not even know it. That's the part that's
Mhm.
tricky about all this. Is very unconscious often.
Mm.
That we have to always look at what the child's experience is.
Yeah.
And when the child's experience is, "You've turned away from me when I've needed you the most, when I'm really in some kind of psychological distress. You've shamed me to the core, and we can't get a repair," because shame becomes involved in this, and that's been my
Right.
most important work, that
Yeah.
I begin to feel isolated, and I'm working in this relationship on my own, and what do? My biology wasn't built for that.
Yeah.
I can become dysregulated, like my parent is dysregulated, and that will lead to unresolved and dysregulated disorganized attachment. But in my family, I have also absorbed some other kinds of defensive processes that help us regulate, that help us survive.
Hmm.
And that leads to failed mourning and preoccupied personal suffering.
Hmm.
The defensive processes that are combined with the turning away for failed mourning are uh, are couched in some more benign messages to the child. I need you to be independent, but I need you to be more independent than most kids your age.
Right. Exactly.
I'm not comfortable being close to you, but boy, am I proud of you when you get those A pluses on your spelling test.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
there's a distance, and there is a normative version of this, and this is our normative avoidant relationship, um, and our normative dismissing. There's a normative base of these defenses. But when these defenses kick in, because that's the way we have learned, and it's comfortable for us and it's comfortable for our parents, when they kick in, when the parent has turned away, they go on overdrive.
Mhm.
I can't say that I'm frightened. I can't say that I'm in pain.
Right.
There are things that I can't say because I know what you're going to say. Take care of
Yeah.
it yourself, because
Yeah.
that's what we've learned. So that becomes, and we stayed with Bowlby's term, incomplete, failed mourning. But the mourning is not necessary for loss or maltreatment. It's the mourning for every single one of those times that the self was not validated
Mm.
and not I don't, in some relationships there's treasuring, and in other relationships they're not. You're just comfortable together. And
Right.
as that goes on, those defenses clamp down and on those, on what we now are calling trauma. So we should the full name should be failed mourning of attachment trauma, not
I like that better. That resonates.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then we have all of that feeling. It's in our nervous system
Mhm.
that when our need is triggered, we have to shut it down. Our need is
Mhm.
we have to shut it down. And sometimes when our need is triggered, we can't shut it down and we become dysregulated.
Mhm.
Okay. But the general idea about failed mourning for attachment trauma is I haven't had the opportunity for us to open up. Now I'm adult, now I'm an adolescent, or now I'm an adult, because we do see this is in adolescence when our attachment ideas about ourselves begin to coagulate. Um, this is how I run my life. And
Mhm.
there's a lot of pain and there's a lot of shame because it's a feeling of isolation.
Mhm.
In this on my own, and the shame is pretty intense. Um, so when clients come to us in treatment, sometimes they're depressed. They say I can't work at my job. Um, I don't know what's happening in my relationship. I just kind of feel like I'm stuck, but I can't tell you why.
Mhm.
And then as we go forward in that conversation, we find out that there were times that they can actually remember. And we use the AAP, then an assessment, because the stories that we tell are not always our biography, but they are related to our biography.
Right.
So
Right.
we can see from those stories that there's certain ways in which this individual has had to really shut it down, really work hard to shut it down. And
Mhm.
we're not surprised that they're in our offices saying, "I'm depressed and I feel isolated, but I can't put my finger on it." So
Mhm.
that is the origin of failed mourning. Let me stop there and let you ask a question.
Sure. I was just thinking, like, let's just say that as a child, like I'm 5 years old, mother is highly dysregulated, verbally violent, and so I would perceive as a child, one, that I'm the cause,
Yes,
and that
yes, shame.
and the need my need doesn't matter. It's about doing whatever's necessary to regulate her for my
Right.
safety, the fawning, right, that happened. And so in that, I assume that's part of, at a minimal, dismissive, because what it becomes is autonomy. It becomes that I'm going to figure out on my own what's happening. But with but it gets complicated because without me knowing what to do, have an adaptive strategy to relieve her and regulate her, right? Like that's the strategy that then I think that I'm safe, but it also goes into I'm now reconfirming my young little nervous system that I'm the cause.
Yes, and all of the incomplete mourning, unresolved, failed mourning, and preoccupied sufferers engage in what you just described, which is called role reversal, where
Yeah.
our biology says the worst thing, and again, it's our biology,
Mhm.
the worst thing can happen to me is to be left and abandoned and isolated and without a parent. So what
Yeah.
can I do to make you
Right.
be my parent?
Right.
And so all three of those patterns that I described
Mhm.
will, in their own way, reach out to the parent and say, "You know what? You're the one who's supposed to be the stronger and wiser. How do
Yeah.
I get you to do that?" And
Right.
that differs according to what is the foundation of the relationship.
Mm.
If the relationship is based on anger and fighting, the child and the parent will just fight and fight and fight where the child is trying to get in control and punish and try to shame the parent. If the relationship is built on, when the parent becomes distressed in their own right and they check out, either
Mhm.
still face or, put on their running shoes and run out the door for no reason, no understandable reason for the child, or kinda dissociate, and then the child will be sweet and
Mm.
nurture that. So all
Hmm.
of those patterns can be seen
Yeah.
in that role reversal.
Mhm.
What's particular to the failed mourning, and there is role reversal in failed mourning for attachment trauma, is that the parents' um, way of responding when they are distressed is usually to just say, like at bedtime, "Could you just go to sleep? I'm tired. We've
Yeah.
read a book. I'll read you another book. You've asked for a hug." And then they'll kind of rise to the occasion and say, "No, no, no. We agreed on three hugs and 2 books, and we're done."
Yeah.
So hope you could feel in that example that it's not as emotionally churning as what you have described, but you have to combine those 2 books and 3 hugs with other times when the parent either has been distressed themselves or, um, the child has needed them where they basically sent them away. So
Mhm.
you get this overlay of you're in charge. You have to take care of your emotions. No, we don't talk about emotions in this family. Emotions are not part of the
Right.
conversation. But if you have a hurt knee or if you break your leg, I will take you to the doctor. You're very good at care in that way.
Yeah.
But in those moments of need, the turning away has happened. And if
Right.
at bedtime, the mom is really absorbed or the dad's really absorbed in turning away from the bid for a hug, the role reversal will kick in.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. How does that translate into adult marriages? Whether it's in if it's a failed mourning versus preoccupied with suffering, because and please correct me if I'm wrong, what I see more with this, even just overall preoccupied anxious attachment, goes into preoccupied people have a tendency to go towards very hard and fast towards their spouse,
Yes, yes.
wanting something like in metaphorically, would punch them 20 times in the throat and say, "Hug me, hug me."
Yeah.
Yes,
Let me go into the preoccupied group. I won't do so much with them, because it's important to understand you asked a question about how do we choose our partners.
yes,
And the preoccupied group experiences, they have similar turning away. So I don't need to go through that again.
right,
preoccupied relationship is this is the ambivalent resistant baby, usually, is that over time, the parent has been inconsistent about the messages. Is it time to go to bed? Yes, it's time to go. But I really need to have a jelly bean. Okay, one more jelly bean. And emotions are part of the conversation. What clouds the relationship with preoccupied person is a lot of confusion. There's no
Mm,
consistency. At least in the dismissive relationship, there's consistency. But if you take and if there's turning away, what happens for the preoccupied person is very interesting because there is a message, talk about inconsistency. There's a message the parent says about our relationship. And I use my hands. And then there's a
mhm,
message that the child holds inside about our relationship.
mm.
And they're kind of not the same. And I can't figure out how to get them to go together.
Yeah.
But if I argue with you about what you think's happening in our relationship, I think I'll lose you.
Right.
But they
Gotcha.
carry this other feeling of who they are and the shame
Mm,
inside. So when we are choosing our partners, it's interesting. Some preoccupied people will choose dismissing people because emotions were too much a part of the conversation, and they really appreciate as they begin that relationship kind of the steady, independent, strong,
right.
um, no, we don't have to talk about every eyelash type of.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when there is an eyelash that hurts, that same partner will say, no, you really need to handle it on your own. We just did a workshop, actually. We, meaning Steve Finn, Melissa Lehman, and I, a few weeks ago. And the husband was a dismissing failed mourning. And that was the focus.
Mhm,
But, we had earlier in the workshop we did a role play, and earlier in the workshop, we were working with the wife, and the wife was a preoccupied sufferer.
mm.
And it was classic, the preoccupied sufferer was suffering and really needed closeness, and was confused, one, about how to let any partner know, because that's part of their childhood upbringing. But when they did let them know, the dismissing, partner would give them advice.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, gee, there's a problem here, and it seems so reasonable. I'm not making please, if whoever's listening, please. These are such reasonable, ways
Mhm,
of managing, okay?
mhm.
Problem is that when you have a failed mourner partnered with a preoccupied sufferer, the thing they both can't tell each other is when they really need each other.
Yeah, that's well said. Absolutely. Yeah.
And so, I need you. And I should have told you I was really angry about that coffee cup that you left in the workroom that has mold all over it now, but I
Right.
can't express my anger. And the husband gives advice about, well, maybe you need a list here that I can check or something like that. And it's not always something like a coffee cup, but something more interpersonal. Because by the time
Mhm.
we see these partnerships in the clinic, in our offices, there are often partner problems. But my point is that too much emotion with we don't talk about emotion can feel really good at first,
Right. Right.
but they have trouble.
Yes.
I might, as a preoccupied person, choose another preoccupied person because I know what the rules are.
Mm. Mhm.
But we're never happy because they're always inconsistent.
Yes.
And two dismissive persons may choose each other because they know what the rules are. The problem is when you get the individuals who have the mourning, when they have the incomplete mourning, is that their needs are elevated to when they are feeling isolated, helpless, abandoned, and deeply ashamed. That
Mhm.
shame is being
Mhm.
carried in their core. And that's when we typically see couples and couples therapy, partners. There's another piece to this, which is when individuals have in complete mourning, no matter what group they're in, they tend to gravitate to people also having complete mourning
Mhm. Mhm.
because they're in a lot of pain and their souls hurt. They hurt
Yeah.
deeply.
Yeah.
And sometimes those initial partners, and it doesn't have to be romantic partners, could be friends, is because there's a level of empathy there that they've never seen before in another relationship.
Mm. Yes.
And
Yeah.
I see you. I hear you. You're hurting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Know what that's like.
Right.
And so it's really hard and it takes help. And I would
Mhm.
like to say to your audience, you can't do it with a book.
Right. Exactly.
There is one book I recommend that I won't necessarily recommend without your permission, but um, these problems that we carry were built in relationship. They have to be searched
Mhm.
and explored in
Mhm. In
relationship
relationship. Yeah.
with a professional who knows what they're
Mhm.
doing.
Yeah. I would love for you to recommend the book, and if it's your book, that's even better,
No,
or one
it's
of your books. But,
not.
and also just even mentioning the book, but also elaborating on how important it is to find a professional that has the in-depth training
Yes.
and experience with this. And I'm gonna give you an example real quick of a session I had recently where the husband is participating in porn and texting other women and things are happening. The woman is very strong woman and he went to see his therapist. His therapist said, "You're an avoidant attachment. You just need more affirmation." So now it's off the table of all the things that have been recommended for treatment and things for him to do because the therapist said it's just avoidant attachment, which again is not a diagnosis. Your attachment strategy is not a diagnosis. But the idea of being told you just need more information places it back on the wife
Yeah.
and not on for him to explore his his dismissive attachment and what that really means and the trauma that is
Yeah.
tethered with all of that.
Yes, and sadly, if we get attachment in graduate school at all,
Mhm.
for most of us, now not me, I linked up with Mary Main and I taught a 15-week class when I was a professor at Mills College in attachment.
Yes.
But it was not I'll go back to that in a minute, your example, but it was not a clinical class. It was class, and here are the basics.
Mhm.
You really
Mhm.
wanna know the basics. And
Right.
then my students who were interested in infant mental health would go on and, work with parents and babies, or some of them would go on and become therapists, but at least when they became therapists, they'd have 15 weeks of
Hmm.
not only Bowlby and Ainsworth, but videos and really in-depth discussion.
Yeah. Right.
Some graduate programs don't work with attachment at all, but that attachment is hot right now, so I think they're bringing it in. They may maybe get 15 minutes,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
might be
Exactly.
and then there are others. For those of you listening, I'm sure you have other ideas about the programs, but the point that you made is, and that I'm making, is you have to understand how these processes work.
Mhm.
So if you are a potential client out there, don't bother with the online assessments. Those
Right.
are paper and
Exactly.
pencil tests, and your defenses are on and you don't even know it.
Right.
Plus, those tests were developed by social psychologists who were interested in exploring why people say they are lonely. They have nothing to do with it.
Hmm.
They
Interesting.
don't. That's
Yeah.
another history that I was involved.
Yeah. Right.
There are there are ways, and for those of your clinicians, there are ways of you to augment your background in attachment. You can do what Kim did, which was to do the AAP with
Right.
me.
Right.
Um, there is a book that I recommend for everybody, and it's the only book, and I really have said it is the only book. This is a book written by Sue Marriott and Ann Kelly,
Mhm.
Texas,
Yep.
and they really everybody who was an expert in that area, including me, helped them with
Mhm.
it. But this is their book,
Mhm. Yes.
and it's excellent, and it doesn't try to put you in a group.
Yeah.
See,
Yeah.
what you have to remember, those groups were for research.
Right. And this is a spectrum.
We can go across that spectrum
Mhm.
in a week.
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely.
And what I love about that book is it gives you the spectrum and says, where are you today?
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
piece on attachment is outstanding.
Yes.
There is a new book that was just published in think about a year ago. It's in let's see. I was just talking to the author. It's a book built for clinicians. Those of you who are not clinicians, you would just be totally overwhelmed. And I'd go to
Yeah.
Sue's and Anne's book. But for you clinicians out there, the book is called um, Treating Attachment Patterns and Trauma. Sorry, don't have but it's by Karen Pandamars.
Mm.
And the beginning section of this book is the best summary of Bowlby, Ainsworth, and the neurophysiological underpinnings of attachment that I've ever read.
Wow. That says a lot.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Skip the Handbook of
Yeah.
Attachment. Go right to Karen Pandamar's book.
Mm-hmm.
The way that there are many ways that we can use as clinicians to intersect with our
Mm-hmm.
clients.
Mm-hmm.
The way that she uses is accelerated experiential dynamic psychoanalysis, which is fabulous. You can
Yeah.
use internal family systems. You can use my colleague Anna Buchheim in Germany uses a traditional German model of
Mm.
psychoanalysis.
Mm.
You can use anything that is relationship based.
Right.
So I'm
Yeah.
suggesting Karen's book for more background, and I think anybody would be curious about what they call AEDP, but to get the nuances without doing what I did was read 3
Mm-hmm.
volumes of Bowlby every year for 35 years, and I was still really impressed with what she put together. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm plugging these 2 books. Going
Yeah.
back to your question about partners, though, is that you can see, I think, that what brings us together are this overarching set of defenses, how they regulate us, and what was or wasn't working in our own families, and we can get
Mm-hmm.
these different pairings.
Mm-hmm.
When there
Mm-hmm.
is unaddressed trauma, all of the couples are unhappy. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter what the pattern is
Right.
because they really haven't um, they have never been able to express their pain and ask for need in the way that they
Mm-hmm.
want to because of the amount of shame that has been created around being turned away from what
Mm-hmm.
needed to be
Yeah.
connected.
It's so true.
There's a
Yeah.
bottom line to all of them, regardless of what pattern.
Yeah. 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 Appreciate you saying that. Shame is so incredibly debilitating.
Oh,
And I appreciate and Anne Sue in Anne's book, if I remember correctly, it's in my bedroom right now, secure relating. And also if you go to therapistsuncensored.com, they have different workshops and online classes and things they can do. There's a wonderful community there. I do think this is something that is, to me, paramount to be part of someone's healing process.
I think that information appeals to people more on
Mhm.
the dismissing side
Hmm.
because left brain activity, giving advice, getting advice. Now,
Mm.
to get uh, a sense of what's out there, I love what they offer. I love
Mhm.
what you offer.
Mm.
But I think even they are saying, and what I'm saying is we all have to take what we listened to, what we read, and bring it back into relationship with our therapist.
Yes. Oh,
And the
100%. Yeah.
first thing that we do when we are clinicians or when we are a client is we have to develop a relationship of trust with our therapist. And that's
Mhm.
hard because we didn't have that.
Mhm.
And we may
Mhm.
still not have that.
Yeah.
Many individuals are reticent. And the thing
Mhm.
about shame is shame will interfere with trust.
Sure.
I think what the interpersonal piece is that feeds into podcasts and things that we read is your therapist can look you in the eye and say, and this goes back to shame, of course you reacted like that.
Mhm.
Every human on the planet would react like that.
Mhm. Right.
This is nothing to be ashamed about.
Right.
And working through those feelings are actually the beginnings of developing that trusting relationship. And then you and your therapist together develop a pace.
Yeah.
And we all make mistakes. And,
Yeah.
I might make a mistake. You might make a mistake.
Mhm.
You might leave a little annoyed with me that day. I might
Mhm.
leaving. I had one colleague the other day. She said she was so frustrated. She was working with parents. Uh, and then what we do is we come back and repair. And that's the other part that wasn't part of our experiences as a child. When,
Right.
when especially
Right.
when been in mourning for so many
Yes.
years.
Yes.
And repair is the only way to I don't wanna use the word fix, and I don't like the word heal either. It's a little too
Mm.
pop psychology for me, but
Mm.
it's literally a reequilibration of your nervous system.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's putting your right brain and your cortex online. It's putting your emotion it's eye contact, right to right brain eye contact. The work at
Yeah.
Ellen Shore is so beautiful.
Uh-huh.
How the right brains are right brains. And I think we
Yeah.
can still do this online, a lot of the work and we're online right now.
Right. Right.
But that I think all of the information we can have out there is good. What on the average, what people don't know, though, is what are people's opinions and what comes out of science and biology, or people who have kind of been immersed in this. There are some very popular podcasts out here. My colleagues keep sending them to me. Uh, People who are making millions of dollars on the topic
Mm.
of attachment, um, mm, who speak very well, but don't ever go deeply into
Agreed.
what needs to happen.
Very much agreed.
So buyer
And
beware, and if you have a
yes.
question, check in with Kim.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that in you and your vast knowledge of that. And if you can you put this in very simple terms? And if you have already stated this, and I apologize, but this comes up a lot, like, what's the difference what most people are being taught in a trendy way, or even concrete way, of anxious, preoccupied attachment versus preoccupied with personal suffering? How would they know like, simple criteria?
Okay. The people who use the words avoidant and anxious ambivalent for adults are social psychologists.
Mhm. Mhm.
And they are assuming that the adult is a carbon copy of what Mary Ainsworth observed in the 1970s in the strange situation in their homes.
Right. Right.
The people who use the words dismissing,
Mhm.
preoccupied,
Mhm.
dismissing failed mourning, preoccupied with personal suffering, they are developmental psychologists.
Mhm. That's
They
good.
are interested in how our attachments start. I wish we could start in utero, but in infant mental health, we can sometimes, but we start at
Yeah.
birth, and how those relationships are built, and whether there are places in those relationships where changes can take place.
Mhm.
And some of those changes can be positive adjustments, and some of those changes across our lifespan can be what Judith and I call assaults. And of course,
Mm.
lots and maltreatment are some of those.
Yeah.
Um, but it really is two separate fields.
Wow. Wow, this great way of putting it in a way that people can kinda nestle in with that, of knowing what they're hearing and what they wanna gravitate towards, because if people wanna make it trendy, they can. It's not necessarily what the audience within this podcast are looking for, because there is a depth that you're bringing to this, and always have, 'cause I know you're very dedicated to
Yeah.
this field, and very passionate about people understanding what it actually is versus what it can be easily be billed as.
And the social psychologists are really interested in romantic partners and who
Mhm.
you choose to have sex with and who you
Mhm.
want to marry. And
Mhm.
so, those questionnaires that you do online, they call it attachment style.
Uh-huh. That's right.
And I don't want to say they're useless, but they're not going to tell you what the developmental trajectory might have been.
Right.
And those approaches are not going to be able to, especially when we have had experiences of turning away, they're not going to be able to pinpoint where in our therapeutic relationship I, as a client, I really want to ask my therapist to hone in, or you as a therapist, maybe moving in the direction to hone in on something in particular.
Mm.
That area is not interested in that. And I did want to
Mhm.
say something about sex, if I could.
Sure.
So biologically, sex and attachment are related because they both produce the same feel-good hormones.
Mhm.
S
Mhm.
Many times, individuals, especially individuals who are, in more what we used to call in my day, promiscuous, partner swapping, promiscuous relationships, are getting the hit of the sex drug, but they're
Mhm.
not getting the sustained intimacy of attachment.
Right.
And when that drug wears off, we find a new partner,
Right.
and that can move into porn addiction as well.
Mhm. Yeah. Absolutely. Very valid.
So they are related, a
Mm.
and we can try to find somebody else through another kind of interaction who make me feel like didn't feel as a baby.
Yeah. All right. Last question. I think it's the last I could ask you 1,000 questions, but I think it's the last question. And this might go it might still be very parallel with this being trendy, but a lot of people simplify this, especially if they're just trying to teach someone initially about attachment
Yeah,
strategies.
yeah.
I just want your opinion on that a lot of people use the technique of, I'm okay, you're okay, being secure, right? Dismissive being that I'm okay, I don't know if you're okay. That kind of philosophy, right? And disorganized being, I'm not okay, no one's okay. Preoccupied being, I'm not okay, let me make sure you're okay. I'm curious that framework of how people are using that, if there's any validity to it, if that's a powerful tool or something that kind of goes back into the trendy category.
I think it's too simplistic.
Too simplistic, isn't it?
I
Yeah.
think it's too simplistic. I mean, it
Yeah.
was even hard for me to answer in a more scripted way some of what is this pattern, what is that pattern.
Sure. Sure.
There are overarching rules.
Mhm.
I think to say I'm okay and you're okay may be avoiding big problems.
Mm.
And not everything has to be problematic, but when we're working in the clinical world, people who are not having trouble in somewhere don't see
Yeah.
us.
Right.
You know?
Right. Right.
If we are secure and flexible and, you know, doing pretty well,
Mhm.
we don't
Mhm.
need to see a professional usually. We can figure
Right.
things out on our own and take
Right.
somebody in. But the people that we see and the people that I see and consult with, um, and I run consultation groups for clinicians. These people have very deep-seated problems that's interfering with their parenting,
Yeah.
it's interfering with their lifestyle, it's interfering with their partnership, it's
Mhm.
interfering with, their work. These are
Mhm.
big things. Too much
Yeah.
alcohol or coming into to work depressed, or these are big issues, and that's when we see
Yes.
professionals.
Yes, that's right. That's
Yeah.
right.
And
Yeah,
then we
and
can balance out. We don't need to see them all the time, and there's some
yeah.
individuals who I think should be seeing people 2 and 3 times a week.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm
agreed.
sure insurance companies would foster that, but that's a whole nother
Yeah.
topic as
That'll never happen, right? Yeah, but I appreciate your time and also just even the words of deep-seated for everyone just to really get that this is very deep-rooted, and that's part of why it's working with a professional who has taken time to do things like train with Dr. Carol George, who have gone above and beyond their degree. Because honestly, we don't learn a lot in graduate school. Some people I'm sure do, but especially just remember this as you're seeking more information about attachment strategies or any part of learning more about yourself through therapy is that it's great that I went to graduate school. It's a very long time ago, and I listen to something every day because I want to keep learning because it
yeah,
keeps evolving,
yeah,
right? And
yeah.
so, please be with somebody who's willing to keep learning. As you're learning about yourself, be with somebody who's willing to learn about themselves and about this field continuously.
And find a clinician if you're a client out there, a potential client. Um, the clinician-client relationship is the heart of the work that we do.
It's the
So
heart.
find someone that you feel you can work with.
Mhm.
And if you feel for some reason during the first couple of meetings you can't, don't be ashamed to say,
Yeah.
this isn't gonna work for us, and that works for client
Mhm.
clinicians as
Yeah.
well. And
Mhm.
I would also encourage you if you think that there are sort of problems and things hidden perhaps in whether you weren't allowed to talk about emotions, or you become dysregulated, or too much emotions, those are probably working. If it's relationship problems, you're probably working in attachment. Find somebody who actually has done some work, or maybe is
Mhm.
continuing to do some
Mhm.
work in this area, like, for example, you're doing, Kim.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Because just changing our behavior doesn't work.
That's right. Doesn't work. That's not the process, is it? It's
No,
not. Yeah.
sadly, which can be nice.
No. Yeah. Well, I'm so glad you revisited and took time with us. I'm excited to continue to learn with you. I definitely want to do a next level of training with you, and we'll be honored to do that. And we can talk about that in a second. So, but thank you for being here. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
So, to all of you out there, Flip Your Lid audience, I don't know exactly what you heard today, but I know you heard something that's going to help you to reconnect to who you really are. And we'll see you next time. Hey, thank you. Thank you for listening to Flip Your Lid. So I just want to ask, if you've got a second, will you take time to subscribe, rate, and maybe even share this episode with someone that you think might get something from it? You can follow along with us through YouTube, Instagram, TikTok at KB Honeycutt. That's KBHONEYCUTT. And no matter what, please treat yourself well today. We'll see you next time.